Hello, welcome to LA Made, and my name is Christina, and I'm a librarian for the Lifelong Learning Department of the Los Angeles Public Library. And I am here to introduce today's program. First, I would like to invite everyone to join our Winter Reading Challenge. It is for everyone in the family. It's a great thing to do together. So go to lapl.org/winter to register. Also, check out the Code for Change Challenge. Code for Change is a fun coding challenge to raise awareness and share stories on how to protect our planet. All ages and coding experience are welcome. So again, go to our website, lapl.org, to sign up and learn more. Now, on to LA Made, which is why we're all here. So LA Made focuses on the diverse landscape of Los Angeles, highlighting LA's immense artistic and performance talent. We would like to thank the National Endowment for the Humanities, our Library Foundation, and our behind-the-scenes staff for helping bring these programs to you virtually. For today's program, we are pleased to welcome the very popular and very amazing Silver Lake storytelling crew of Strong Words, just in time to celebrate all your favorite seasonal events, from Hannukah to Christmas to Steinmas. So with that said, on with the show, and now over to Larry Dean Harris and the Strong Words crew.
Hey! Thank you, Christina. We are coming to you live from Los Angeles and Palm Springs and Chicago and Columbus. And if you've never been to a Strong Words show, you're in for something. I'll tell you what. I was reading my favorite book today. It was the night before Christmas. And I thought I'd share a little bit with you, if that's okay. 'Twas 8 days before Christmas, and all through LA. The stages were quiet, no Nutcracker ballet. Angelinos were nestled, locked down safely at home, except for the super spreader event that we call the Grove. Now, me and my crew said, LA needs some cheer. Let's have our holidays show like we do every year. So we teamed up with our friends at the LA Public Library, because it's just not the holidays without stories. And your favorite host, Larry. We're tickled you're here. Let's get to the stories. Our first story, she's a newbie. She's a virgin, which is perfect for this holiday because you need a virgin. It's her first time performing at Strong Words, and I'm so tickled. We've been friends for way, way too long. I was a fan before I was a friend. And it's a good thing to be both, because she bakes one hell of a sticky chicken. She's a singer, she's a songwriter, she's toured all over the country with the Four Bitchin' Babes and as a solo artist. And then she stepped into my turf and started writing stories, and she put out a book, The Mental Yentl, which you can buy on Amazon, along with her like 90,000 different CDs. And I'm absolutely delighted. Couldn't think of a better way to kick off our holiday show. Let's hear it for Sally Fingerette.
Thank you, Larry Dean. Well, as a Jewish person, celebrating Christmas is a mixed bag. So I would like to share a story. It's actually a song I wrote, sort of a rap, Jewish girl rap thing about the Christmas experience for a Jewish girl. And I take Christmas very seriously. I'll tell you why. Well, back in 1954, down in Chicago by the South Shore, a baby girl was born one Christmas morn. Ooh, here comes drama. Of those Christmas babies that arrive, she's one of the lucky. In the first 5, gets free diapers, whole year's supply. Got a happy mama. Well, the hospital nurses were more than delighted to help with the names. They get all excited. Name her Mary Carol. How about Christine? There's always Judy or Josephine. You know, use the letter J in honor of, the baby Jesus. Well, the parents were having none of that, so they gently replied to avoid a spat, oh, thank you for those names. We're not Christmas people, so if it's all the same, we thought we'd go with something Jewish, something Hebraic. We're going to call her Esther Shandel. Well, that's quite a handle for a brand new baby, and a trend was starting in the 1950s. Names were getting Americanized, downsized, de-ethnicized, a futile attempt to depolarize. And so the family decides to be translating, truncating, ultimately assimilating. So the beautiful and biblical name of Esther Shandel gets homogenized on down. They call her Sally. That would be me. Now, being born on Christmas really sucks. I got a lot to say, and you can trust my litany will be really long. For years, I've tried to write this song. I'm a cranky old broad with no decorum. I'm stealing licks from a rapping forum. It's my turn to have my say, because I'm a Jewish kid born on Christmas Day. Jewish kid, born on Christmas Day. Well, I remember back when I turned 5, no birthday parties could ever jive because the Jewish friends had all left town. They went to Florida. Christmas break at Bubby's house. And the Gentile ones? Well, come on, it's Christmas. Back then, gas stations and movie theaters were closed. There was nothing open. Goodness knows, just a rickety Chinese restaurant. Happy birthday, Sally. Have whatever you want. What do I know? I'm 5. They give me rice and fortune cookie. Well, on our way back home from eating Chinese, we drive up and down the icy streets, peeking into windows, see Christmas trees, and have us a contest. Which side of the streets had the best Christmas lights, sparkly houses lit up bright? But I'm a little girl. I start to cry. I don't understand why the baby Jesus is out in the cold, in the front yard manger, covered in snow. Why didn't they bring him in where it's nice and warm, near the fireplace where the stockings were hung? Let him open presents with the girls and the boys, give him Christmas cookies, and let him play with toys. I'd give him my fortune cookie. My fortune said, learn many languages, go far. I wanted to learn to speak Catholic and go to Christmas because I'm a Jewish kid born on Christmas Day. Well, I turned 10 in 1964. I was miserable down to my core. Radio and TV were a horrid bore. Remember? Before cable. Radio blasting choirs from the Vatican and TV's humming with off-the-air patterns and Christmas people everywhere. For us, alienation and despair. There was nothing to do but sit and wait and wait and wait and wait. While the world came to a screeching halt. Midday on December 24th, folks said, don't worry, kids, it's over soon, but it felt like we were lost, marooned. Grateful our cousins from Skokie would visit because Aunt Lil was planning on bringing a brisket. And she called to say they were out of gas and the stations were closed and they'd have to pass. My mom starts to bake my birthday cake, but we're out of eggs. Boy. Well, really, I could go on and on. No doubt this is one depressing song, but the truth is no one forgets my birthday because they know it's a drag. And they all call and say, hey, what a drag. I say, yeah, thanks. And then I ask them what they got for Hannukah, because now this year, it's also Hannukah. And I get birthday calls on Christmas Eve. So now I call it Birthday Eve. Just a chosen few get Birthday Eve. Who? I'll tell you. Humphrey Bogart and Jimmy Buffett, Annie Lennox and Sissy Spacek. I wonder if they all get birthday presents wrapped in Christmas paper. Look, it's Charlie Brown with Lucy and Linus, dressed as the three wise men, standing over Snoopy as the baby Jesus. Well, in spite of myself, I've grown up, trying not to be a bitter adult, but the biggest mishigas of all is when I'm out shopping at the mall. I've had a lovely time perusing and my credit card is perched for using. And the cashier asks for my ID and I hand it over and he takes a peek and then I hold my breath. And I wait to see if he notices. Of course he notices. Stand back. Here it is. Every time. Like I've never heard it before. Oh, you're a Christmas baby. Well, right then and there, I have to make a choice to just say thanks or raise my voice and let loose with this talking blues. Hopefully I'm smart enough to choose to let it go. Turn the other ear. Because that's what the baby Jesus would do. Because he too was a Jewish kid born on Christmas Day. Happy holidays, everybody. Happy Hanukkah, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year.
Oh, I love that song. You can buy that song on Amazon, on iTunes, everywhere where music is sold. All right, let's dive right into our next story. I love this story. I love it so much. I love her so much. Every time she tells a story, she introduces a new vocabulary word to us. And I won't say the one we learned last time because this is a family show. But I'm just going to wind her up and let her go. Joanna Stein, you're on, baby.
Thank you, Larry. So happy to be here. Let's dive in. Just before my daughter turned 3, she asked me, "Mama, what's Christmas?" When I opened my mouth to answer, all that came out was a raspy choking sound. It was more awkward than the time she saw me coming out of the shower and asked me why my kiki looked like a squirrel's tail. I probably don't need to explain what a kiki is. Suffice to say, I haven't had it waxed in a long time. And by long time, I mean never. Let me explain. I was born to a pair of card-carrying, dope-smoking, radical hippie Jews in Winnipeg, Canada. Not a lot of Jews in Winnipeg, Canada, and even fewer card-carrying, dope-smoking, radical hippie ones. My parents were free thinkers when they weren't stoned and felt that organized religion was a thin construct of a socially enfeebled culture. As a kid, I didn't know what that meant. I still don't. But it didn't matter because on Sunday mornings, while my friends were waking up at 7 a.m., pulling on itchy wool dresses and dusty tights for church, I was cocooned in a polyester blankie, laughing at Bugs Bunny while jamming handfuls of Count Chocula into my yap. And there I was, all those Sunday mornings, gloating at my good fortune with brown marshmallows stuck in my teeth. And then December would roll around. Hannukah would slide past our house without a nod. That was fine with me. I didn't know any other Jews. For a while, I considered them mythical creatures. As far as I was concerned, Hannukah was the weird, distant, creepy mouth breather of an uncle that you don't want to spend one night with, never mind 8. No, my soul-scarring pain belonged to Christmas, my holy grail, the one holiday I desired more than anything in the world. I would have gladly sacrificed Halloween for Christmas, and I was a whore for Halloween. I mean, not that I dressed up like one, you know what I mean. The songs, the gingerbread, and the trees, those innocent pines dripping with tinsel and lights and big shiny balls. So wrong, yet so right. Oh, Christmas tree. But in the Stein house, Christmas was the most despicable of religious holidays. My parents rejected its crass commercialization, its Judeo-Christian fascist hypocrisy. Mostly, they hated the idea of being forced to spend time with extended family members who weren't supportive of their alternative lifestyle or their frequent consumption of pot brownies. But my parents, God or somebody, love them, they had the presence of mind to realize that even though they had their principles, our family was weird enough already. Depriving their kids of presents during the holiday season, well, that was just one toke over the line. And lo, Stein Day came to pass. Stein Day fell on December 26th, Boxing Day, also known as the Great Canadian Fire Sale, when sometime around mid-afternoon, Mom, Dad, and the big blue Rambler station wagon would pull into the garage, loaded with half-price Legos, out-of-the-box erector sets, and several bags of Chinese food. And while the kids played with their loot, Mom and Dad would spoon out the chop suey, smoke a bowl or 2 or 7, and that was that. It was Happy Stein Day, everybody. No visiting relatives stinking up the bathroom, no insincere toasts about gross things like family togetherness, no commie fascist hallmark bullshit, just fun. By the time I was old enough to appreciate it, Stein Day had gotten even more casual, if that's possible. And yes, it was. My teenage brothers couldn't be paid to hang out with their parents, even if they did have the best weed in town. And the magical cavernous Rambler, now deceased, had been replaced by a VW Bug, in which my mom would drive me to Kmart, hand me $20 and tell me to get yourself something and bring me back the change. Now, while I truly, truly appreciated the strings-free cash, I wanted more. More what? I didn't know. Just more something. The year I turned 11, I asked my mom if we could take a crack at this whole Christmas thing, maybe get a small treat. She laughed long and hard and then gave me her stock answer of, "Don't be ridiculous," because underneath all that tie-dye beat the heart of a pragmatic dictator. That is when my personal search for Yuletide satisfaction began. On Christmas morning, before anyone in my house was awake, I'd shower, get dressed in my fanciest duds and snow boots, then leave the house to make my rounds. I'd have breakfast with the Taylors, brunch with the Herberts, and dinner with Rob and Crystal Ricketts. After gorging myself at each stop, I'd do some much-needed research. Stein Day was a mere 24 hours away, so the chance to test drive my friend's freshly unwrapped booty was a gift in itself. It's how I learned that sea monkeys suffer from an egregious case of false advertising, and that an easy bake oven, even if it is just a hot light bulb encased in plastic, is freaking spectacular. And I'd inevitably cash in on the sympathies of my friends' confused parents. Stein Day, oh my. They'd hand me one of those emergency gifts from under the tree, you know what I'm talking about, usually an address book or a photo album, or if I was really lucky, a brick of fruitcake. And then I'd walk home with a full belly, loaded down with gifts and leftover mincemeat pie, but with an odd feeling like I'd cheated the system, but still didn't win. Then when I turned 16, I fell madly in something like love with a boy who wooed me by reading to me from his hip youth Bible, The Way, which featured colored photos of Jesus, who, it turns out, was a stone-cold fox. On our first Christmas Eve, Matthew took me to his church. It was a nice, homey Presbyterian joint, and as we held hands and sang songs about frankincense and reindeer, I felt a deep sense of warmth and belonging. And the feeling remained even after we left the church, and I felt it later that night while he was feeling me up in the backseat of his Pontiac Reliant K car. My heart welled with emotion and the spirit of Christmas. Unfortunately, my swollen heart was obliterated a week later when Matthew broke up with me, saying he didn't have enough love in his heart for both me and Jesus. That year, the year Jesus stole my boyfriend, then subsequently gave him to Joel Benderchuk, was the year I made peace with the fact that I would never make peace with Christmas. And I didn't. As I exited puberty and entered adulthood, every year became an experimental improvisation of holiday cheer. One year I'd put up a tree and decorate it ironically with sneakers and fake mustaches. The next year I'd ignore it completely. Sure, I'd enjoy a slice of Christmas ham when offered, and who was I to say no to a 5,000-calorie mug of eggnog? But the older I got, the more estranged we became. Christmas was like a Facebook friend that I'd stalk now and then, but I wouldn't dream of inviting him over to crash at my house for a week. By the time the husband showed up, I was long past my Christmas obsession. He is also a Semite, and the year we hooked up, we agreed to skip the whole holiday thing and instead went to Vegas for the weekend. We felt like we'd beaten the system, which is what Stein Day was all about, right? Well, that and sticking it to the commie fascist establishment. But then entered the daughter and her pesky holiday questions. Once I was able to get control of my breathing, I told her what Christmas was in Wikipedia terms, and explained to her that I didn't grow up celebrating Christmas like most people, but that my parents had created a holiday tradition that worked for them. And that's when it hit me. We were the parents now. We could do the same thing. We could carry on my parents' tradition by having our own holiday tradition. And so now we celebrate Christmas and Hannukah and Stein Day and the kid's birthday, which is December 28th. For us, it's not about beating the system at all. It's about diving into an orgy of celebration. We have a 4-foot-tall Christmas tree with a blinking Star of David on top. We have stockings and dreidels. We have bagels and turkey. And sometimes I ask my husband to feel me up in the back seat of our Honda Pilot just for old time's sake. I don't really do that part. But this year, on December 26th, friends will come over for a socially distant Stein Day brunch, except without the bong, because we prefer to vape. There will be gratitude for flexible family, and the halls will ring with well-wishers calling, "Merry Christmas, Steinmas to all, and to all a good high." Oh, there we go.
Oh my God, I love how you drag the pets into your show. I will no longer feel bad about using my dad as a prop in stories. Joanna, thank you so much. And thank you for bringing back all those memories of Christmas Eve at church and those reindeer hymns that we sang. Good times. Yeah. So for those of you who have tuned in for the first time and are like, what the heck is this? This is strong words. This is what we do once a month. We gather in this glorious outdoor venue in Atwater Village, which is Silver Lake adjacent, because nobody can afford to be in Silver Lake anymore. And we do this. We get up and we have musical guests and we tell stories, and we have a pop-up art gallery for one night only. There's an art show, and it's just this amazing community. And now by watching, you're part of it. And so we are delighted to have you. This is our 8th holiday show, our first holiday Zoom show, our 73rd show total, and our 5th collaboration of many more with the library. And we're happy as heck that you're all here. We are just blasting through all of the holidays. So we've got Hannukah covered, we've got Steinmas covered. Let's keep going. I'd like to introduce a fellow who sometimes he just makes me laugh with a text message. I can't tell you. So when he unleashes a story, just sit back and soak in it. I give you Mr. Roy Cruz.
Happy holidays. I went to an all-boys Catholic school in the Philippines. Every year we put on a Christmas pageant, and every aspiring actor longed to be cast in the nativity scene. In 7th grade, I desperately wanted to play the role of Mary, but as usual, the part went to my arch nemesis, Lito. In every production with a female character, the teachers always cast the most effeminate boy with light skin, and that was Lito. He played Alice in Alice in Wonderland. I played the plant. In the Hungarian fairy tale production, he played the princess, and I played the tambourine while he danced. I had a theory. Teachers chose him over me because he was in the closet. Those of us who were out were relegated to supporting roles. Our drama teacher, Mr. Dominguez, announced that we would present not just the nativity scene, but also the scenes leading up to the birth of Christ. I was given the part of the innkeeper's wife, a small but pivotal role. I would be the one to tell Mary and Joseph that the inn had no vacancy, but they could use a stable in the back. I was the bearer of bad news. For wardrobe, Mr. Dominguez told us Joseph and Mary would be given costume. Lito sparkled at the news. He'd get to wear a blue crepe tunic with an invisible zipper and a vintage veil made of Egyptian cotton. As for me, the teacher said, improvise. When I told my mother I needed a costume, she invited me to look in her closet. In truth, I had already spent many afternoons there. My mother's closet was a sartorial paradise. She was the Donna Mills of Manila. Her clothes were divided into sections. My favorite was the evening wear section where she kept her couture piece, an exquisite opera dress made of chartreuse taffeta with a hand-painted picture of a woman being dressed by her maid. She surveyed her collection, but she couldn't come up with an ensemble. She took me to the mall, but nothing piqued her interest. Instead, we went to see a movie. We saw The Eyes of Laura Mars, where Faye Dunaway stars as a fashion photographer who has premonitions of crime scenes, just like the innkeeper's wife. She was the bearer of bad news. And she had a unique style. Laura Mars always wore a skirt that had 4 openings so she could spread her legs as she took pictures at different angles. After the movie, my mother had an idea of what I could wear in the pageant. We returned to her closet and she pulled out a garment bag. Inside was a silk organza coat. It fell below the knee and had 4 openings, just like Faye Dunaway's skirts. When I put it on, I transformed from a Catholic schoolboy to the hostess of the Bethlehem Ritz-Carlton. For your veil, you can use this. She handed me a shawl made of Belgian lace that gradated from petroleum black to Nordic gray. She put it on my head and gingerly draped it on my shoulders in a magnificent cascade. Just be careful when you bow your head. It might drop, she cautioned. The day of the pageant arrived, and Lito, in his plain blue tunic, looked like a morose Stevie Nicks to my radiant Laura Mars. My scene came. Joseph and Mary knocked and asked if there was any vacancy. On cue, I walked on stage. Confidently and with an air of sympathy, I told the soon-to-be foster parents of the Son of God, "There are no more rooms, but we have a stable in the back that you can use. A cow lives there, but I don't think he's coming back tonight." My teachers and priests looked perturbed. They couldn't tell if the play was set in Israel or Knots Landing. When the cast came out for the curtain call, I remembered my mother's warning about bowing, so I did what Laura Mars would do. As I heard the click of my mother's Polaroid camera, I stretched my left leg backward and did a half split and tilted my head. I was never cast in another production after the pageant. Lito went on to play Anna, Annie, and Wendy. I was demoted to craft service, but that didn't bother me. I had gotten to play the best dressed character in the nativity play. Last year, I received a Christmas card from Lito. It was a picture of him with his wife and 3 daughters. He's still in the closet. As for me, I just sent him a card that said, "Merry Christmas," signed Laura Mars. Thank you.
And that's what Christmas is all about, Charlie Brown. Roy, thank you. We love you. Can't wait to put you in front of an audience again. Our next storyteller, she's been around the world and she grabbed characters everywhere she went. And she brings them in a little suitcase and unpacks them when she tells her stories. And I'm always delighted. We also teach storytelling. And we're starting a class in January. So if anybody is watching and you're like, I can do that, I could so do that, send us a message in the comments. By the way, we're getting great comments. If you've never done the comment thing, there's a little box in your upper right where you can tell us how beautiful Marlena looks, how much weight Larry's gained since COVID. You know, we'd love to hear all of it. Folks, I give you the one and the only Marlena Nichols.
I grew up like a lot of people with a very regular family, with very regular holidays. And then in my teenage years, it happened that I lost my father, and my much older brother sort of left to live this much bigger life. My mom got engaged to be married, and I was really I missed having my own home, and I thought that I should go out and try and make a home for myself. So at 19, I take my 2 suitcases and the 20 words of high school French that I have learned, and I move to Paris. And it's probably because, like most people, the idea of Paris, the place itself, it's like it's somewhere where there are centuries of memories that are just thrown over rooftops, and you have the remnants of the Roman Empire under your feet, and it feels like you're part of this vast place, but also a very intimate place. And I move into a 4th floor walk-up shoebox apartment that makes a Manhattan apartment look immense. It was on the Rue du Dragon, which is the Dragon Street. I had one window that opened up onto the courtyard of buildings around me, a single mattress, a coffee table that I used at my desk, and that was it. Peach padded walls hung on my walls, and I decorated with postcards. So you could say it was a little bit like my very first garret. It was very La Boheme, but minus the consumption and the very hot boyfriend. The only action I was getting was from this little gray cat that was constantly in the stairwell of my apartment building. And every time I opened the door, he was there. And it was always very much, "Salut, baby. I am yet here alone, waiting for you." But it didn't really work so well because I am deathly allergic to cats. So every day it would start this little dance of him trying to get into the apartment and me like trying to get him out of the apartment. And it would always end with this like, "Mais chérie, I love you." The thing about only knowing 20 words of French is that it's very difficult to meet people. And I'm actually quite a shy person in my real life. And even the more I learned, I sort of only knew everything in the present tense. So I would sit in cafes and try and strike up conversations with people saying things like, "I am, I eat, I drink, I smoke." So I was trying to become this international woman of mystery, but frankly, like I was just incredibly boring. I had no future, I had no past, I had only this moment. The only real friends that I managed to have were sort of at a distance, and they were my neighbors who were all themselves like these grand eccentrics. So if I looked out of my window around to the other windows, I could see on my left was Madame Simone, and Madame Simone was of a certain age, très bien soignée, very well kept is what they say, and she was indeed kept. She would spend most of her day smoking very bored cigarettes at her window, eating these beautiful boxes of chocolates and waiting on the next man that might show up. Now, I could always hear her when the guys came and she would say, "Bah oui, j'arrive." And then the game was on because we had this little pas de deux, the she and I. And I would bolt out of my door, chase down the 4 flights of steps into the courtyard, because while I was running down the stairs, Madame Simone would stub out her bored cigarette, tie a ribbon around the box of chocolates, and throw it out the window. If I was fast enough, I could sometimes catch it in midair, but usually it ended up smashing onto the concrete pavement below, and I would sort of be able to eat these beautiful bonbons of whatever didn't manage to, whatever was left once it hit the ground. Now, to my right was Mati, and Mati was Algerian, and he loved the Rolling Stones. So there was always cooking and steam coming out of his window and the sound of the Rolling Stones. And we met once down at the mailboxes, and he's very friendly and starts talking to me in what I'm sure is French. But what I hear is patati patata patati patata patata patati patata patati patata. And the only thing I can respond is that, "Oui." He's very friendly and takes me by the arm and takes me to the restaurant where he is the cook. And he tells me, he's like, "Ah ben, je suis chef. I am chef. Mais philosophe aussi. I am a chef, but I am a potato peeler philosopher." That night after he cleans up, he walks me home, he sticks a couple of baguettes under my arm, and he kisses me, sloppy kiss on the lips. And I think that maybe I don't want a boyfriend, but the baguettes are always nice. And this is kind of my existence. I walk, I see Mati, I eat chocolates from Madame Simone, and I'm not very good at making my own home. Months go by, I get there in September, and by Christmas, I can't really afford to go back to the States to see anybody. So it's Christmas in Paris alone, which is fantastic, except that I actually am alone. So I'm watching everyone from my window, seeing their celebrations and seeing all the drinks and the toasting and hearing the laughter. And I start to become sick. Like I have an ache in my body, and I start thinking, this must be what loneliness feels like. But then a few more days and I realize must be what the flu feels like, and I'm flat on my back. The day after Christmas, I pull myself up to the window to look at some life around me, and I see Madame Simone and I see Mati, and they yell, "Eh bon, ça va? Ça va? Eh oui, ça va, petite américaine?" And I shake my head, "Ça va pas." But I'm not good. And then the two of them start yelling at each other between their windows. I don't know what happens, and then they disappear. And a few minutes later, there's a knock on my door, and I open it up, and there's Mati and Madame Simone. And they look at each other, and they look at me, and I apparently must look 10 times worse than they thought I actually was, because then they both immediately leave again. Again, there's a knock at the door, and this time, Madame Simone is there with one of those travel cases with all of her makeup inside, and Mati has come with potatoes, bread, sausage, moule. And he's going to make his dish for me, moule à gogo, which is mussels à gogo. And all of a sudden, my tiny little apartment, my shoebox, comes to life with all of these different people. And even Mati is singing there, "Love, sisters, kiss away, kiss away." And it's under their care that I spend this day after Christmas, and I sort of come back to life. And I realize it's not so much that it's not the loneliness that comes from not speaking language, it's the loneliness of not having human care. And that point, they gave me the gift of human care.
Delicious. I love that story.
Happy holidays, everyone.
Marlena, thank you. You can catch Marlena and pretty much all of our crazy cast of characters on our YouTube channel. We are like 12 subscribers away from being legit. So if you're watching us on YouTube, just kind of wander down a little box and click not surprise. There's no surprise box. Click the subscribe box. Good God, don't drink when you're doing a show. All right. He's the guy that makes us laugh, and he's the tallest person in the room, and he's won the Moth about 1 million times, and we're always grateful when he shares a story with us. Please give it up. All the way from Chicago, Mom and Dad's house, Mr. Brian Kett.
We're good.
We can't hear him.
This is my folks' place. I'm not this classy. Okay. Normally, I don't like New Year's Eve. Okay. I don't want to get all dressed up just to look at a clock, but I loved New Year's Eve 2009. I spent it at a dive bar in Chicago with two of my best friends, Dave and Eric. We drank craft beer. There was this great jukebox, and I'll never forget, it was right before midnight. The song 1999 by Prince came on, right? And instead of singing, "Tonight we're gonna party like it's 1999, we sang, "Tonight we're gonna party like it's 2009 because we're clever. And I cheersed Eric and Dave, and I rang in that new year. And in that moment, there was just this connection of true friendship. And I cherished it because as we got older, things changed a little bit and we talked a little less. Eric got married and he bought a designer golden doodle, the cross between a golden retriever and a poodle, because they can do that now. Dave moved to Ethiopia and started a very prosperous chicken farm because that's the thing that people do. And I worked up the courage to finally try quinoa. So it was really just big life events across the board for the three of us, but we were growing up and we were growing apart. And that connection that had been so palpable, New Year's Eve 2009, it was fading. And I just wanted to go back to that moment. And then like a few years ago, in 2016, Dave reached out to Eric and me to invite us to Ethiopian New Year's in Ethiopia. And Ethiopian New Year's is different than our New Year's, okay? Ethiopian New Year's, it takes place in the fall, in September. It marks the end of the rainy season. And because there's no religious affiliation to the holiday, both Muslims and Christians, they all come out to celebrate. And it's like the biggest party of the year there. And Eric was interested in going, but I was on the fence. I am admittedly a bit risk averse, quinoa. But then Dave told me something absolutely fascinating. So here's where you really tune in as well, okay? Ethiopians believe that Jesus was born 7 years later. And because of this, their calendar is 7 years behind the rest of the planets, okay? You can Google this later. So for example, in 2000, when it was 2007 here, Ethiopians were ushering in the new millennium. But I did the math in my head, right? This was in 2016, so 2015, 2014, 13, 12, 11, 10, 9. I could relive New Year's Eve, 2009, with Eric and Dave. And that did it. I took a big chunk of my savings, probably too big a chunk of my savings, and I bought a plane ticket. And in order to maintain these friendships, I needed to be just how it was before, right? So same kind of bar, same kind of music, same kind of beer. And right before I left, I went on eBay and I bought 3 pairs of those 2009 glasses with the zeros for eyes. And a few months later, Eric and I got on a plane bound for Addis Ababa, Ethiopia. And 9,000 miles later, when we finally touched down, the captain came over the PA system and he said, "Happy 2009, everyone." And this jolt ran through my body. I was like Marty McFly getting out of the DeLorean. It worked. And so Eric and I, we met up with Dave. We put on our glasses. We gave him his pair of 2009 glasses. We took the streets in the city. It was alive. These men on stilts marched by, and these herds of goats ran past us, and these vendors tried to sell us sticks of unwrapped gum. But I ignored all this, and I got to the task at hand. I said, "Dave, where's the nearest dive bar?" And Dave laughed because Ethiopia doesn't have dive bars. So strike one. But we got invited to a party at a club. And when we walked in, the DJ was playing this fusion between techno and rhythmic drumming. And it's interesting because you think that that mashup wouldn't work at all. And you'd be absolutely right. It's terrible. So strike two. And I guess it kind of goes without saying, but there's not a real big craft beer scene going on in Ethiopia. Just this beer that tasted like hot fermented corn. So strike three. And it was all different, right? It was a different kind of bar, different kind of music, different kind of beer. And I was upset and I excused myself. And I left the club, I left the party, and I was sitting outside, still able to hear everything, but just so downtrodden because this wasn't what I wanted. And it wasn't what I had designed. And I had wasted so much time and energy and money. And when I was at my lowest, the first and only English song of the night came on. 1999 by Prince. Because if there's a universal constant out there, I think we can all agree it's Prince. And as I was sitting there listening to it, one line stood out that never had before when he sings, "And life's just a party, and parties weren't meant to last." And it just kind of hit me that in trying to recreate the past, I wasn't appreciating the present at all. And I was in Ethiopia with two of my best friends at the biggest party of the year, and this party wasn't meant to last. And so I snapped out of it. I marched right back inside and raised a glass, and as the three of us sang, "Tonight we're going to party like it's 2009, because we're clever," I cheersed Eric and Dave, and I rang in that new year again. And that evening, as we danced with locals and drank the corn beer and ate the unwrapped gum, which was probably a mistake, it became readily apparent that this connection that I thought had faded hadn't gone anywhere. I had just been looking for it in the wrong place, in the wrong time. And the thing is, with those two guys, that connection is still there. And I now know that if I ever want to really experience that connection with both of them, that I don't have to do anything grandiose. I don't have to travel across the world, and I don't have to travel back in time. With those two guys, both of whom I spoke with this morning, all I really have to do is just pick up the phone. Thanks.
Wow. Brian, thank you. Thank you for that amazing story. And thank you for telling us just a little too late that all we would have had to do this year was get on a plane and go to Ethiopia. And it would have been 7 years ago. And there wouldn't have been COVID, and there wouldn't have been you know who and the you know where. We could have just done that. Wow. Folks, that was Mr. Brian Kett. He has a fantastic TED Talk on being colorblind. If you Google him, Bryan, you can watch it on your personal laptops and television screens. If you're just coming in late, you're near the tail end, you missed the good stuff, because the only person left is me. But we are Strong Words, and we have been doing this for 8 or 9 years in Silver Lake and Atwater Village. Once a month, we get together and we tell stories, and we have musical guests, and we have a pop-up art gallery with incredible artists showing their work. People bring food. We, of course, have a bar, because it's not a party without a bar, if you know what I mean. And we're really anxious to get back to it. I'm going to go on the record. I'm going to say April. Let's have our next show live in our old outdoor space in April. So if you're just tuning in, you can follow us on Facebook. You can follow us on Instagram and Twitter. And we have a channel on YouTube. And we have our own website, Strong Words Live. And there's just all kinds of ways to find us. And we won't bother you much. We're not like Home Depot, which sends me like 17 emails a day. We're not like that. We'll bother you like once a month, maybe. So my name is Larry Dean Harris, and I can't thank my crew enough for bringing their A game. Wow. Thank you for raising the bar way up here. Lately, I've been thinking, with the holidays and all, the tree. I've been thinking about my years as a child, growing up in this tiny little town outside of Toledo called Lemoyne. And every Christmas, sometime around the holiday, my family, we would dutifully pile into our Chevrolet Impala, and we would take a road trip to the happiest place on earth, Indiana. It was this magical place with relatives that you actually loved, and it was filled with laughter and cookie jars. And my dad would always bring out this like gigantic 8mm film camera with this huge bar of 2,000-watt lights. And when he came in for a close-up, it felt like an airplane was about to land on your face. When you're a kid, that's all the world you need. You got the place you call home and the place where you always belong. So this story is dedicated to the people that I love and miss so very much, and to that time. Now in England, they say on holiday when they mean on vacation, which must be the English don't ever get to enjoy travel, because on holiday to me means an excruciating pain. As a child, on holiday meant sleeping in the back window of our Chevy Impala for the 400 miles to grandmother's house. No seatbelts for the Harrises. While my older sisters enjoyed the luxurious splendor and semi-permanent imprint of plastic-covered seats. Now, as an adult, on holiday means longing for that dangerous perch on the 5-hour flight to Dad's house, wedged between the 350-pound sweaty man and the lady who didn't bring a book because she likes to make friends when she travels. As a child, my suffering was rewarded by the open arms of my grandmother, who would often stay up as late as 3 a.m. awaiting our arrival. I can't remember the color of the Impala, but I remember her big, thick arms wrapping all that unconditional grandma love around me, and that warming smile that always said, "Are you hungry?" As an adult, I wish my grandmother was still around. You don't know. Only this time, it would be my big, thick arms refusing to let go of her. I'd make her a heaping plate of pancakes and bacon and wonder if she appreciated the salty sweetness of pork and maple syrup the way I still remember from those nights, late nights in her kitchen. And it would be me waving and crying as the car pulled away at the end of an exhausting trip, not her. I don't regret a single trip to grandmother's house now, but as a child, it was an exercise in pain and suffering that was totally avoidable. Avoidable was the annual diatribe by my father on why it was important to give equal time and love to his mother, Grandma Stoneface, who always served the same thing for dinner that she did at lunch. Sometimes she'd just leave it on the table under a linen cloth for 4 or 5 hours. She rarely spoke, unless it was to pray, I assume for the Lord to deliver us from botulism. Or she would chastise us with, "Are you born in a barn?" Avoidable was the static, heavy AM radio dialings of my father, who searched the airwaves furiously for the faintest detection of a sporting event or a Christian radio broadcast. Didn't matter to Dad as long as the signal was faint and scratchy, which is exactly how I often felt after 6 or 7 hours of headlights glaring into my eyes from the cars coming from behind. Especially avoidable was the dearth of bathroom breaks along the way. There were exactly 4 rest areas between home and the quaint little town of Cannleton, Indiana, and my father knew how to avoid all of them. No matter how much we pleaded and begged, and sometimes we even would pledge our love as a final desperate measure, he was relentless in his efforts to placate us with just 15 minutes more. Now, I don't know what my dad hoped to accomplish by denying us the most basic of human kindnesses. Maybe he knew I would someday move to New York City, where there are exactly 4 public restrooms on the entire island of Manhattan. Maybe he was just conditioning me. I don't know. But a few times, my sister was able to trick my father by feigning sickness. But he quickly saw through her charade. Unfortunately, I was highly prone to motion sickness, which was only aggravated by my father's speed up and slam on the brake method of acceleration, accompanied by his random jog to the left, jog to the right system of steering. Jaded by my sister's cries of wolf, Dad ignored my pleas, leaving me no choice but to barf all over him. What's equally sad and hysterical is that the next year, history repeated itself. Dad swerved, I warned, Dad ignored, I hurled. A new holiday tradition had been born. Now, these days, I don't travel for holidays. I believe that peace on earth begins at home, and that's where I stay. My family doesn't understand, but how could they? They aren't the ones who have to travel. But I know if I could, If I could go back to those winter nights at my grandma's toasty kitchen long after bedtime, to those magical mornings of Christmas lights and shiny foil wrapped presents and stockings filled with nuts and jellied candies and grown-ups jumping on our pogo sticks and stealing secret sips of the grown-ups' bourbon and Coke, I would travel twice as long, enduring double the pain and suffering. Without the journey, maybe I wouldn't have appreciated the destination quite so much. There is, to this day, no place that matches the warmth and joy of my grandma's kitchen. Her prized collection of salt and pepper shakers to the left, icebox filled with cold cuts and 7-Up to the right, cookie jar straight ahead. And when I watch those 8mm films, which we converted to VHS, and then we converted to DVD, and then we converted to digital files, those 8mm movies that my dad shot every holiday without fail, and I see my grandma and my mom and my sisters all still together, it's easy to forgive his tyrannical, maniacal behavior behind the wheel all those years ago. Because he had the foresight to know that it wasn't just the most wonderful time of the year. It was the most wonderful time of my life. And that's our show, folks. I cannot thank you enough to all of our friends at the library. They are the best hosts in the world, whether it's online or in their glorious downtown library. I encourage you, use the library. They have fantastic library to go services right now, and you can get books and just love the library the way we do, because we never, ever, ever want to lose them. I'm going to throw it back to Christina with our thanks. We had a great time.
No, thank you, Larry. Thank you so much to you and Sally and Joanna and Roy and Marlene and Brian. You guys had amazing stories. They're very heartwarming but funny. Just amazing. Thank you so much. And just a quick note before we sign off, the next LA Made program will be on Thursday, January 7th at 4 p.m. with Amy Bauer Designs. So a little different from today, but it'll still be great. We will learn about wearable art, what it is, and how to get started. And again, the Los Angeles Public Library throughout this month has a lot of different amazing programs. So just check out our calendar on lapl.org. And again, thank you to Larry and the Strong Words crew. This has been amazing. And thank you, the audience, for taking the time to spend the evening with us. So I guess until next year, we wish you health, happiness, and a wonderful holiday season. All right, bye-bye. See you next time.